We're trying to always bring you the best coverage continent-wide, and it is Wingspan, Full Court Africa. Once again, Quentin Denason, I'm here. I have a special guest. It's always a pleasure, and, we are trying to expand our repertoire when it comes to conversations on the continent, and I'm privileged to
Yeah.
have one of the seasoned veterans. I got our first look at him when he played for US Monastir in 2024, but his career spans a lot longer than that. I'm going to let him get into it, but having a look at this stellar guard, you're listed at 198.
Yeah, might be
You've
a
been playing
little embellished.
been playing the game a little bit longer. George Williams, we're going to get into your resume a little bit, but thank you very much for joining us here on Full Court Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all for having me.
So let's start. When you look back now, or 35. Okay, we can talk about age. You're 35 years old. You've had a stellar career. You've managed to travel the world. How did this start?
Man, it started with a dream. A dream of wanting to play professionally. Even through high school and college, I had a lot of ups and downs. So when it became time that I wanted to do this professionally, after my college career, I was forced to figure it out, and I didn't have too much help at the time. So I was going to camps and tryouts and everything until, I received my first opportunity, and it just took off since then.
Hey, when you look back, and they're not saying your career is over or anything like that, or even
Yeah.
implying that at all. But when you look back now, what are some of your standout moments? What are the moments that you already are like, hey, I did that?
Yeah, man, I have a few, I guess. I mean, the BAL is definitely one of them. That was, something that was in the works for a while. I didn't know too much about it, and then the opportunity came to me. Playing in the Arab Cup, having some solid performances, playing in the BCL Americas. My journey is taking me all around the world. That's always a tough question, but there's definitely some highlighted points throughout my career, which I really am grateful for. It's also helped me build my platform as well.
I mean, it feels like a natural conversation for us to go into that first, because
Yeah.
playing overseas is
Yes,
your
playing
platform.
up.
That's your platform on social media, and given the extensive amount of travel you do and the different experiences you have across all the different continents, is that essentially how you came about just creating this platform?
Yeah, it actually was, I created it just venting, about things, athletes go through overseas. And, it resonated with so many people that it just started to grow. And from there, a lot of other opportunities came from it, of course. And then now it's a social media marketing company I started. So I have my LLC, et cetera. Like it's a real business. I think a lot of people don't realize that because of a lot of the humor and stuff I put on the page, but it is the actual business. And I've been able to help over 70, 80 plus athletes and few coaches, with contracts and jobs through the platform. So it's definitely a blessing, man. I'm still working on it, still growing.
What is some of the difficulties you face as a player? We don't get too much I never got too much opportunity to travel in
Yeah.
my career. Well, I did. I traveled, but under the guise of the national team. But what are some of the difficulties with playing overseas and making the choice to become a career professional and essentially a nomad?
Yeah. Of course, the time, I talk about it a little bit on the page as well. The time, man, because life doesn't stop no matter, when you travel, being away from home, the older I get, that's starting to take a toll on me, missing family and friends and major events in other people's lives. You can't get that stuff back or that time back. So as I get older, I see that's one thing. And, I tell everyone, like, eventually the ball's going to stop. So if you don't have a foundation of things you want to do after, then, that could be a challenge as well. So, for me, I guess I would say those two things are probably the biggest.
When you look at the current landscape of African basketball, because that's the premise of the conversation, right? Um, where are we? First of all, you were down here playing national club championships for the KwaZulu
Yeah.
Marlins, which was also, a surprise to us who got the chance to watch that. But you've played in the Basketball Africa League. You talked about the BCL. You have a real basis for comparison. Where do you think we are? The player treatment, the competition on the floor. How much of a
Yeah.
desire is there for you to still perhaps stay on the continent?
There's I love Africa. I tell everybody, and there's so much potential when it comes to talent. Like that's what shocks me the most. Like I played in Tunisia last year. Um, I played with a club from Algeria in the Arab Cup. And of course playing in the BAL. So and I played in the finals in Nigeria. In their league, the tournament. So, but the biggest thing is I would say organization. From top to bottom in a lot of leagues. I think the organization is just a little, African as my people. I'm Nigerian myself, so I already know how that goes. The skill level was something I was surprised by. There's a lot of talented, athletes on the continent who don't really get the opportunity as other players would, to receive that exposure. And that's another thing, I wanted to do with my platform. Actually, one of my teammates, Chinka Garba, I helped him from Nigeria go to Rwanda, and his career just, blossomed. I mean, he was already talented, but I seen him like receiving opportunity like that, what he could do for somebody. So that's something I really want to aim for to help other guys in Africa. And it's definitely a challenge, but it's something I feel like I can do with my platform and with my network. But other than that, I would say pretty much the organization. A lot of the leagues are kind of like in Nigeria is put together so fast. It was a tournament rather than a league. Same in South Africa. Evans actually called me maybe a day before I traveled. It was like, hey, I'm going heading to South Africa to play and, the qualifiers, et cetera. And I was like, well, shoot, I don't have to be in Asia until a few weeks. I
That's
would love that
amazing.
experience. Why not? Yeah. And I flew out there. Fortunately, we lost in the championship game. Some questionable situation in calls, but that was exciting, man, just to see like to this day I get messages from fans and people from South Africa telling me how much, they enjoyed the game and my gameplay. So I think that's pretty cool. And, I feel like the basketball is deserved for people like that out there who don't get that opportunity. So I think that's one thing, they could work on, as far as the organization.
I mean, we could have a long conversation about the organization that you see across the continent and the differing levels. There's some really excellent examples, and there are some not so great examples depending on where you are and
Yeah.
your role there. When you look and when people haven't seen you play, you're 35 years in. What's been what was the hardest part of your game to develop, and how much developments do you still do in terms of the work right now on your game?
I would work out every day still. That's one thing, I believe I take really good care of my body as well. But I would say, I'm not the most athletic person. I've never been throughout my career, but my ability to score and handle the basketball, I think, and is what has taken me this far in my career. So every day I'm constantly working on my ball handling. That's funny. I get messages from guys, other pros, guys on other teams, like, yo, what can I do to work on my ball handling skills and stuff like that? So that's one thing I definitely, predicate my game on and continue to strive to be better at. But other than that, I think my personality is funny as enough. Like me just being such a easy, laid back person. I'm a people person. I love going out, meeting people, etc. I think that's something that speaks to the character of who I am and my game. Kind of helps me off and on the floor.
Now, I mean, this is going to be a tough question. Again, it's difficult when you put on the spot sometimes. But is there a particular coach or mentor that that you can attribute your approach to the game, your current approach to the game with?
I think honestly, at the age of 14, my 21-year-old brother, he became my legal guardian. And, he kind of raised me, especially through the basketball sense. I get a lot from him in certain ways. And then, like I said, my personality, um, from my dad was such a laid back person to where nothing could bother him. And, that's kind of how I am, whether I'm in the game. I feel like it's very hard to get me out of, out of anger. I may have passionate moments, but I'm honestly never really bothered. But there's a lot of great coaches. That is a tough question. Coaches, even teammates, that have played a huge part on my career and as to, the person and player I am today. So I'd probably need more time to answer that question.
I told you we'll have a little conversation about your career, and just see which direction it goes. What is what and keeping with the context of the conversation, what is the toughest environments that you've played in? Like what are some of the
Woo,
what are some of
man.
the toughest environments, and what did they look like? Just you can paint the picture a little bit.
Yes. Uh Man, definitely off the top of my head, Tunisia last season.
Oh, I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
I've never experienced some of that stuff, from our own fans to away fans. It's an amazing atmosphere. Like, I feel like as an athlete, that's something, an atmosphere you like pray, dream of playing for. The fans are crazy. You getting stuff thrown at you. They're throwing fireworks on the floor. It was definitely a challenge. Lebanon is another one. Fans are amazing. They love basketball out there, so you can't doubt that. Mongolia, that was an experience. They have some wonderful fans, and Argentina as well. Argentina was I was another experience, but the fans are crazy. You can't walk the streets without people knowing which club you play for. So there's a couple, man, but off the top, I have to say Tunisia. Tunisia was definitely a crazy atmosphere.
Maybe there's a little bit of recency bias there as well, but I mean, the pictures and the videos that came out of that series last year, you can almost feel how much pressure was on both clubs and players. And does that change
Yes.
your approach? Like, does that do you go in more hyped up? Do you feel more pressure, seeing that you said you're so cool headed?
Yeah, for me, especially last season, I dealt with a lot of injuries, unfortunately, last season while I was there. But it definitely was motivation to play because I mean, you see the fans and the people they love the game, and this is like it means so much to them. So part of that makes it mean more to you, I guess, to a certain extent. But it was it was definitely a experience. I can say one, for these I can say, and even talking to my teammates and some of the guys there now, it's just the way of life out there. It's the way of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of how they were able to rise to the top of the continent. And
Yeah,
they're in a little bit of a building phase, but the Tunisian basketball
yeah.
culture is still something that I think should be revered, and something that players should experience, I think, throughout their career. When you think about and I want to talk about the current state of African basketball, but from a two-pronged approach, because you've played in the BAL now, and you've also got, you said, the marketing manager had, and how important is this Basketball Africa League to the current infrastructure from a player perspective? And where do you see it, or where would you like to see it from a player perspective, and maybe a little bit further?
I definitely think it's headed in the right direction. I guess I would still say the same. I mean, yeah, it's pretty organized, but there could still be, some things I feel better organized or the opportunity because I see how everyone fights to get a foot in the door. So I think maybe if they could also help organize some of the leagues, not just the qualification tournaments, if they went into had a head of person in each country or something like that, just to give a little more direction and structure because that does cause a lot of pressure for teams, for funding and stuff, something that would help basketball be moving and grow year round. I think that would definitely help change the infrastructure of everything.
I definitely think the direction they're going with the franchise system will increase the length of the league, and
Yes,
we'll see more stability for players. And I mean, that's always going to be good news, because players are the product at the end of the day, and that's
exactly.
people come out to see you guys on the floor,
Yeah.
and that's the highlight of everything. I think. Let's go to a little bit more fun, right? Because we're going to get to the end of this conversation a little bit, but I want to hit you with some quick fire questions, and then just see if you see what's going on. So, quick fire question: toughest defender you've ever faced?
Man, toughest defender I ever faced. Oh, that's a tough one. I can't even think. I've seen so many defenders throughout my career because
Okay,
I'm an offensive player. I'm a scorer.
let's go with
That's a tough one.
top 3 off the top of your domes, because then there's no pressure on just one guy.
Okay. That's even worse. I'm terrible with names. I would have to think maybe if I went by like countries.
Mhm.
There's one guy in Argentina. Argentina basketball is it's tough. It's very high level. They're very competitive. They think their basketball is the best basketball in the world. So that's one thing. So I definitely saw some great defenders down there. Um, Man, that is a tough question. Tunisia, that has solid Tunisia, where I was very physical in Tunisia. So I saw some very tough defenders as well. I can't remember his name, Club African. They have a solid defender, man. I don't know, that's another tough question.
I see
I'm
what you're
sorry.
saying. So maybe
Oh, I'm sorry, that's
the
another tough
problem is
question.
numbers too, and so you got numbers in your head.
Yeah, I'm thinking of everything right now. You gotta think,
Okay.
I played in over 28 countries now, so trying to think, that's a lot of guys.
That's significant. So knowing that, do you have a favorite arena that you like to play in? You can top 3 all of these that I'm throwing at you.
Top 3, okay, I can answer, yeah, Lebanon and suggest the home court, that atmosphere is crazy. Like, I have a few videos from there. That atmosphere is crazy. Tunisia is another one of them, home games, even away games. And then Mongolia in Asia, they have a new arena they built, which is kind of amazing, and everyone plays in the same city. So those games were always usually fun in the first division.
Fantastic. Player you'd most like to go one-on-one with?
Ooh, somebody I'd like to go.
Because after you win, you got bragging rights forever.
Yeah, man. My boy Osama Manawi, and he was my teammate last year in JSK. He's with
Yes.
He's a talented athlete, man. We used to go out in practice. I think he'd be fun person to play against. And Jay Boise, I can't even say Jay's last name.
Jean-Jacques Boissy.
Little Jack. Yeah, we played one-on-one a couple of times when we went to the Quay 40, the tournament in Paris, when we were representing the BAs. Me and him, man, he loves to work, man. He loves to work out. He's such a talented player and hard worker. But I remember there was like a little side court, and we didn't have anywhere to really practice that day when we first got to Paris, and we climbed over a fence and found a basketball. And we're playing with some kids, and we got up the floor and played one-on-one. I think he got one game. I think I got one game. So I need that rematch.
I think I would also pay for you and Chris Crawford to do a little one-on-one. I think that would be an interesting.
Chris is tough too. Yeah, Chris is tough too. I definitely got to see him in the ones.
All right, and then let's close with one word that describes your mindset on court.
Free mindset. Never too high, never too low. Control what you can control. So I'm pretty free, I think.
All right. If there's a young kid watching this interview, and you can offer them some words of insight about what it takes for them to be to have a successful career as a pro and some longevity, and they ask you, George, how do I go about just sustaining my career? What would you say?
I would say you have to be resilient, hardworking, and just a good person. Because more than my skill and everything I learned, I believe me being a good person has taken me this far. As I told you, from guys, teammates, coaches reaching out to me just because, they appreciate being around me. Not even the basketball part, they speak highly of me, of just being around me. So that's one thing I preach to younger guys. Even though with playing overseas, I do a lot of consultations, and I like to find out how guys are off the floor, because that stuff matters at the end of the day. It's not always going to be your skill that gets you into these rooms or into these teams.
And those are wonderful words, George. I'm going to say thank you very much
Appreciate you.
doing this interview. I hope it's not the first. I hope it's not the last time we get you on Full Court Africa. But for now, it's
for
been
sure, yeah,
absolutely
sure.
amazing. Thank you.